I'm going to call the committee of the whole meeting to order. Do you want to ask for a motion to adopt the agenda? Okay, so I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Move.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? I just wanted to start by mentioning a couple of things, a couple of thank yous. First of all, to Greg for coming and televising the meetings, and if anybody's interested, they can watch it on kaslo.com. I wrote kaslo.com, so kaslo.com. So, and just a reminder to councillors and anyone sitting at the table that there is still some acoustic problems, so everyone make sure that when you're speaking, speak loud enough so that the camera can pick it up and people can hear it. And the second is to thank you again to the cemetery committee that meets from May to September and maintains and does a beautiful job looking after both our graveyards. They're always looking for volunteers. It's 1 day a week during those months for about an hour, and then you get a beautiful dinner at the end. So if anybody's interested in joining the cemetery committee, you can contact Gary Lindstrom when he gets back in May. So those are my two plugs for tonight. So I need a motion to adopt the minutes of October 1st, 2013 and October 15th, Committee of the Whole Finance. So here, Secretary Councillor Lang. Any discussion? All those in favor? So our first 15 minutes of the committee.
Can we just record no public is present at the meeting?
Well, I was just going to let me just
Okay.
qualify that first by saying that the first 15 minutes of any meeting of the Committee of the Whole is a public engagement time, and where the public can ask questions about any issues in the village. The 15 minutes at the end of the Committee of the Whole meeting is for questions that pertain to the agenda. So given that there's no public tonight, we'll just move right on to our delegations. Our first delegation is Jillian Sanders from Wall Safe BC. And I just want to mention that our second delegation is going to care a little bit later. So we'll go through start doing the business, and when she comes, we'll just suspend that and listen to her delegation.
Go ahead.
So just a reminder that you have 10 minutes to do your presentation, and then we'll have 10 minutes for questions.
Okay, excellent. I don't even expect that I'll take up the full 10 minutes. It's more just a check-in, and mostly to make you all aware that Bear Aware has become Wild Safe BC, so now we're educating about warning bears and trying to keep both wildlife wild and communities safe. And the main target species that we're educating about are cougars, coyote, urban deer, as well, of course, as bears. This year, 2013, has been a really excellent bear year, relatively very few conflicts, excellent huckleberry crops, so the bears have been out of town for the most part. October saw a few bears coming down as the huckleberries finished the season. But yeah, nothing like 2012, which is, we all know, last time I was here was a bit different situations. So it's great in that way. It makes me feel that we've come a long way in our traffic management, and speaking with other communities and the Conservation Officer Service from 2012, it seemed that basically the whole West community was having a bit of a nightmare here. And yeah, again, we see the natural foods really playing into the role that bears play. The food sources that towns provide for wildlife creating issues, and when the natural foods are plentiful, we don't see the same conflicts. Yeah, so I've been doing some outreach in schools, and I think also I wanted to just come back to you guys on congratulating Kaslo for having such an excellent wildlife bylaw. Other communities now that I'm in touch with throughout the province are looking at our wildlife attractive bylaw as a model. So I think that's awesome. We were sort of ahead of the game on that when that came into play about 4 years ago. So that's been great. Being able to sort of lead the way on that. And thanks to Ray Sawyer, who's no longer with us here for the meetings, but she was instrumental in helping draft that bylaw, so that was really great. I brought along some brochures that I've been handing out to the students and making available through the community, so if anybody's interested, I pass them along. And I still have these little fridge magnets that have the program from the Conservation Officer Service phone number on them. part of when I asked for the delegation, it was to talk about the financial situation, and I wanted to thank you for the ongoing contribution of $2,500 towards Bear Aware, now Wild Safe BC. And coming up into 2014, that money, if it's available, I'll request it again, would actually be administered through BC Conservation Foundation instead of through the North Kootenay Lake Bear Smart program. The BCCF has asked that all the community contributions go through them. So that's not just for us, it's all across the province. So I'll put forward a proposal for that when the time is right. It would be great if, I haven't actually met you yet.
Yeah, I'm Neil, I'm UTAO.
Yes, I know Jillian Sanders, yeah. Maybe if it was possible, maybe I'll shoot you an email and maybe we can be in communication about when that application for funds, or when it's best for you to ask for that money through the budget.
So,
The future, yeah. And then I can help, if the money's available, which would be great if it is, and we can put the check to the BCCF and then they'll administer the funds in your account.
touch base with us quite soon on that, because I'm not sure if the 2013 money's actually been transferred through to you yet, and staff aren't sure about that.
I got the check, yes.
You just got that recently?
Yeah, so thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Okay.
And then again, that money basically goes for advertising. I always put up a bulletin and pinlines about the wildlife attractant bylaw. The one difficulty, and I'm willing to talk about this with you however we figure it out, is that the monies from the village has always helped to promote the fruit tree project, which, as you know, is a great project here locally to help reduce the wildlife attractants within the village. And if the BCCF doesn't want to, they're just administering wild safe. So they're not interested in communities' fruit tree projects or fruit harvesting, gleaning things. And I'm not sure exactly where to go for that, but I really like the village money to still help advertise for the fruit tree project where possible. So I'm going to try and work that out. I see that just as being one of the really good hands-on projects here in town. It's made a big difference. And you know, Betty Goodrich was specifically with me here last year. She's still doing really good work, so I want to support that and support her. And I think it reaches our overall goal of keeping communities safe and not having wildlife running around town. So somehow we'll work that out. Yeah. I don't know if there's any questions. Oh, I missed one thing, but I'll answer your question first, Greg.
Go ahead.
Okay. I've been trying to also get a cougar biologist and a coyote biologist out here. The coyote biologist would be from Alberta and the cougar biologist from Washington State to give a presentation here in Castle, I think, because we've never had a presentation, an educational presentation on either of those species, and I think it would be a great way of sort of expanding bear aware into wild safe. I'm having some trouble getting people up here. I guess our remote location doesn't really tie into other travel plans that they might have. So we'll see, but I was hoping to have the date solidified for the Google presentation at the end of November that I could share with you tonight. I haven't been able to do that quite yet. So I'll give you an email, maybe through Neil, and if any or all of you wanted to attend and learn a little bit more about that, that'd be great. I know this previous winter, 2012 to 13, we had a young male cougar who was really hanging around town and getting a little too comfortable and actually eating cat food off of people's porches. So it's definitely unsafe and nobody wants that behavior. So some more education on those species I think is relevant.
Just, the issue for me is that where is the regional district at in terms of fruit trees? Because when I cross over our municipal boundary in the county subdivision, there are fruit trees all over the place.
Yeah, sure.
Unattended and da-da-da-da-da. So does the program include areas adjacent to the municipal boundaries, or how does that work?
Sure, it does. The focus has been through basic need and public safety. The primary focus for harvesting fruit has been, and I should just clarify, this isn't me as well as it is, has been the Little Valley of the school. Because of the proximity to the school, we don't want a bunch of bears running around in there. And especially the trail that leads behind the hospital to the school where many children frequent. And so that area, and then Lower Castle. And so I've directed Betty through the last couple of years that she's been coordinating the program to focus on those areas. Because those are the areas that we least want those animals coming into. And then going into the Allen subdivision, it's like the third priority area. And then going out towards Mirror Lake or Shutting Bench is equally sort of fourth, lower priority areas. And so this year, Debbie says that there's actually been, she's had more harvesters, last couple of years she's had more harvesters than fruit. 2012 was actually a very poor fruit year, but 2013 was quite above the crop. But there does seem, and this was always a goal of the program, that neighbors would actually just communicate amongst each other and people would talk to their friends or family or whoever and just utilize that fruit. To me personally, I don't actually mind where it goes as long as somebody uses it and it's not laying rotting on the ground for any wildlife. So I think the more the program coordinator doesn't have to do, then there's less onerous job on her. And if people just are looking after their excess of fruit, then that's meeting the goal. So that's great. Yeah.
So the bylaws that we created, I think we had the conservation officer was here with you at one time. Has he had to deal with like any of those bylaws with people? Because I believe he said that he was going to try and use the bylaws if there was any issues with.
Yeah, and it hasn't come up yet because this year was so good and there really wasn't any major conflicts. I'm not aware of anybody actually calling the conservation officer service from Kaslo about theirs this year at all. And so, yeah, we'll see. But having the bylaw in place is excellent because who knows what next year natural berry crop will be. We may see numbers in towns. Bit of fluctuation there. So
Yeah, that's a good question. So for the, if we're going to be sending the money to the BC Conservation Program, is that still going to guarantee basically the same program for us in our area?
yes, yeah. They require a minimum community contribution of $2,500 to have a program within the community. And so, yeah, the village contribution has been very appreciated and has enabled the work to go forward each year and to keep up on the school education and whatever advertisement we can do. I'm also using that same village contribution to fund in the Go and Do, the Pennywise, to also help for education for visitors to the area, because it's also relevant to our overall goals of safety. Yeah.
Does the RBCK contribute
It does.
$2,500 so that, it's kind of a unified thing?
Yeah, they do.
Mirror Lake and the Shady Bench and stuff like that?
Yeah, and that's where the RBCK actually contributes $15,000 over 5 communities, so $3,000 each, or 5 programs, I should say, instead of communities. And I'm using that funds more for the Upper Lake areas than in Kaslo. It does cover, of course, education within Mirror Lake, Shady Bench, the Allen subdivision, the surrounding areas. But yeah, it goes, it's part of it all for sure. So they're kicking in as well, which is, of course, wonderful.
That's the here. Do you have a question?
Well, you sort of asked it. It was just to ensure that the contribution that we are making will actually be of, we can demonstrate that it is a benefit to village residents. And, it sounds like it would be, localized advertising. And if some of the programs that you've been doing, education and whatnot, will continue to happen. We just don't want it to be lost into a provincial abyss and we don't see any benefit for it. That's my concern.
Yeah, and that's a very fair point, and that's where actually previously to now I've been happy to administer that funds directly with a separate bank account in QE Savings, that that money goes to and I can administer it. But it's now a requirement of BCCF that they administer those. So that's fine with me too, and I will be making sure that that money stays in. The one issue I should bring up, or maybe not it's an issue, but they do charge you 10% of the admin fee. So we would use $250 to verify it. On the other hand, they have excellent bookkeeping, financial skills, all the rest, and so you may actually find yourself with better services than admin who are not an accountant. So, I mean, I've always that very straightforward. You have to see the book, but it's not my forte.
Any other questions? Well, just a comment to that. For the fruit tree project for the village, there are municipal grants you could apply for that would, if you're not going to get any funding through this program anymore, you could also apply for a municipal grant.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. And when will those become available?
Yeah.
It's typically been, I think, February, March
personal work has become more regionally based to do with Grizzly Bear agricultural conflicts, so throughout the entire Kootenai boundary. And so that's part of the reason why I've handed over the local fruit tree project to Betty. And so hopefully Betty will be the one coming forward to apply for that money. And I totally support her work. She's been doing excellent work. So, and we're still working together on some of this as well. So whatever I can do to help.
Okay, well, thanks for coming.
Okay, can I leave a few of these behind, or do you guys?
Sure.
Put them up there?
Just a minute, like, carry on with the meeting,
Yeah.
but, I do have to visit the loop.
Oh, I thought maybe you wanted to talk to me. Yeah, I guess maybe if there's any of these left over, they could just go downstairs.
Oh, sure,
and stuff.
sure.
So they're on the desk.
Yeah, we'll put them in the office.
Okay. So thank you all.
Okay.
Good night.
Hi. Are you just, come have a seat? Got here a little bit early. Do you know anyone sitting at the table? Phil Holland?
Change the light bulbs down there.
What's that?
So change the light bulbs down
Councillor Hewitt. I'm
Sorry?
Councillor Hewitt.
Susan.
I'm Councillor Lakewood. Councillor Lang, and the mayor will be back in a minute. So you can go ahead. I mean, you have 10 minutes for the delegation and then 10 minutes for questions.
Do you want me to wait for your break?
Oh, please.
Yeah, I think you can go ahead.
So, hello, I'm Jessie Renzi. I've worked in healthcare for 27 years. 22 years of those years I've been a registered nurse. In that time I've worked mostly in small hospitals and outposts. For the last few years I've been employed here in Kaslo. I'm also the lobby coordinator for the West Kootenai region of the BC Nurses Union. In this role I advocate for healthcare and nurses. I do this because I'm passionate about our publicly funded healthcare system. The Nurses Union plays an important role in protecting and advocating for the health, social, and economic well-being of not just 40,000 nurses and allied health workers it represents, but the communities in which we, the nurses, work and live. British Columbia's healthcare system provides a vital service to the residents of BC. At some point in their life, the majority of residents will require the services of the system. For many residents, access will be given through a family practitioner, but for others, their first contact may be through an emergency service and the ER department. For residents living in rural BC, access to emergency services may be limited or even non-existent. In small rural hospitals like ours here in Kaslo, the strain of cutbacks is especially evident. Nurses struggle with adjustments and worry about how they'll be able to care for their patients, and if in fact they'll even still have a job. Cutbacks lead to increased patient risk while stretching the limits of the Canadian Health Care Act, and I brought this on you, but and it's basically the universality. All insured residents are entitled to the same level of health care. Rural Canadians have an increased death rate and a shorter life expectancy than do urban Canadians. In an article addressing global rural health challenges, Roger Strader states that despite huge differences between developing and developed countries, access is a major health issue in rural health around the world. Even in countries where the majority of the population lives in rural areas, the resources are concentrated in the cities. All countries have difficulty with transport and communication, and they all face the challenge of the shortage of doctors and other healthcare professionals in remote and rural areas. The BC Minister of Health states that British Columbia also faces a challenge in ensuring that all parts of society and all populations can access healthcare services and enjoy good health. 2 of their 4 strategic goals speak to ensuring this challenge is met. Goal 2, British Columbians have the majority of their healthcare needs met by high-quality, primary, and community-based healthcare and support services. Goal 3, British Columbians have access to high-quality healthcare services when needed. Objective 3.1 of that goal is, while the majority of British Columbians' healthcare needs can be met through primary and community-based healthcare, the citizens of British Columbia also require timely access to safe and appropriate hospital services that support the need of patients and their families. A key factor for timely access to all emergency service is the ability to triage and stabilize patients with medical emergencies 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A notable characteristic of emergency care is known A notable characteristic of emergency care is the importance of access to care within 1 hour distance, also in healthcare known as golden hour, or time from illness, injury to treatment. Time to treatment is a critical factor affecting patient outcome in emergency care. Many of the citizens in Kaslo's surrounding area live an hour or more away from our emergency department. For all the residents who live in Kaslo and surrounding area, the time required to receive treatment is critical. Factors such as weather, road conditions, terrain, or geography may have significant impact on morbidity and mortality. We need our emergency department open 24/7. The British Columbia Nurses Union represents registered nurses, licensed practical nurses, and other healthcare professionals that live and work in rural and remote locations in British Columbia. It cannot and does not speak for physicians, ambulance attendants, or long-term care providers in Kaslo. At the time of the 2013 British BC Nurses Union Convention, Kaslo had been told to expect cuts to the hours to the emergency department. I put forward a resolution calling for BCMU to lobby for rural emergency departments. My resolution was unanimously approved by the delegation. My resolution stated, whereas BCMU believes in protecting and advancing the health, social, and economic well-being of its members and their communities, whereas Canada's publicly funded and publicly delivered healthcare system is known to be one of the best in the world, but continues to be eroded, whereas rural emergency departments are experiencing cutbacks, reduction in service closures, be it resolved that BCMU work closely with rural emergency departments struggling with physician coverage and at risk of cutbacks and closure by promotion of nurse first call, remote nursing practice certification for RNs, by engaging nurse practitioners, by assisting to support and educate nurses and the public on ways to lobby and advocate to save these publicly funded, publicly administered healthcare services. Subsequently, the BCMU Provincial Council developed a working group to address the resolution. One of the challenges faced by the working group was that there was no national standard to define rural emergency services in Canada. In order to narrow the focus of the working group utilized rural programs, a guide for the Rural Physician Program in BC, BC Minister of Health, and BC Medical Association Joint Standing Committee on Rural Issues, January 2012, and recommendations for the management of rural, remote, and isolated healthcare facilities in Canada, Canadian Association of Emergency Physicians, to generate a definition of rural emergency department care dispensed by general practitioner or non-physician providers. Here is the criteria. Care dispensed by general practitioner or non-physician providers. Specialist support not immediately available or limited within 70 kilometers. Facilities must be over 70 kilometers or over 45 minutes travel in good weather from a trauma receiving facility or regional facility, and community population less than 30,000. Limited or no ability to transport patients by air, and transportation is either via road or ferry. Kaslo meets this criteria. Losing overnight emergency service in Kaslo will reduce the ability to triage and stabilize patients with medical emergencies. The loss of these services will result in patients having to travel to Nelson either by private vehicle or by the provincial ambulance service. These patients may then require more critical interventions, and the delay in providing services may result in increased complications and death. I want to speak about the important role Kaslo's emergency department fills, not just with CTASK 1s, and CTASK 1s very simply. Level 1 is they show up in emergency and resuscitation mode, right? Level 2 is emergent. Level 3 is urgent. Level 4 is less urgent. And level 5 is non-urgent. And you know, I have to say that as a registered nurse at the hospital, I find the people of Kaslo very respectful. They don't show up with a level 5 and emerge in the middle of the night. You know, they show up needing help. So that really simplifies the 5 levels. Basically, this is the criteria. It's so you have universality. Like I triage someone at the same level as someone in Toronto does. So it's made our course, and registered nurses have to do it every couple of years. And then we always have to refer to this, so, you know, you show up like X with sore throat. I have to follow the criteria of what your mission is, and they can collect statistics and that for, you know, the statistic they all always like to collect. And then everyone's triaged. You know, the the same way, so it's not subjective, I guess that's what I should say. So I can also read this if anyone's interested. So, speaking about the emergency department role in council here, not with just C tasks and ones which are people short in resuscitation mode, which is the most serious level a patient can present at our emergency department, because it's well documented that C task ones are only a very small admission in rural emergency departments. In fact, they're the smallest percentage in large emergency departments as well. And Dr. Ross had said that looking at our statistics and looking at other statistics, they're pretty comparable. You know, for large hospitals, having people show up and see task 1 or 2 or small hospitals. We need to think about the lesser emergencies, such as looking after sick children in the wee hours of the night, seniors with fractured hips, motor vehicle accidents, cardiac patients presenting with chest pain. I can cite many other examples of why our citizens may need to utilize the emergency room after hours. Caslo and surrounding area residents need 24/7 health care. The Premier's major health care mandate objectives clear to Health Minister Terry Lake. In a mandate letter, she instructed him to be innovative in finding savings throughout the system. Budgeting. In BC, we're experiencing historic lows in healthcare spending. This year's provincial healthcare budget provides for an increase of only 2.31% to the Ministry of Health, 2.38% in 2014 to 2015, and 2.72% for 2015 to 2016. The health authorities are limited to increases of 2.56% in the upcoming year, 2.32% in 2014 to 2015, and only 2.11% in 2015 to 2016. The government and IHA need to spend their tax dollars supporting 24/7 rural health care for the citizens of Kaslo. Recruitment and retention of doctors and nurses. Nurses may choose not to practice in rural communities because of the lack of educational opportunities for themselves, lack of spousal supports like jobs for their significant others, and lack of other personal supports that are available in more urban settings. The BC Minister of Health has implemented recruitment strategies for physicians for rural communities. Unfortunately, similar strategies for nurses have not occurred. Kaslo is an amazing community, and recruitment and retention of nurses needs to be a priority. Emergency departments must be available to provide services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Solutions to achieve this goal must be looked at. A helpful solution for rural health care would be for tiered health to consider all models of care, including the use of nurse practitioners, which really aren't for emerge. A nurse practitioner takes care of stable patients, so it'd be more like an augment for downstairs. Promotion of nurse first call and remote nurse practice certification for RNs in order to maintain 24/7 service in Kaslo. And I did bring, I think I gave this out once before, but I brought, this is from our professional body talking about what the remote nursing certified practice is. It's a scope of practice, and it's also for the nurse first call, and this is the scope of practice for nurse practitioners. So I'll just leave that as well. Rural emergency nurses frequently practice autonomously where physician support is limited or only periodically available, exercising increased independence in decision making. Obtaining and maintaining skill sets and competency directly impacts the quality of care that is provided by nurses in rural emergency facilities like ours. Nurses who work in emergency departments are committed to providing quality, safe patient care. In fact, these very recommendations were made in the Ross report, an independent view of Kaslo's ER problems, which was solicited and paid for by Interior Health. Yet IHA has either ignored or refused to implement them. Dr. Ross also concludes Kaslo's ER needs to remain open 24/7. We should never believe that rural communities deserve mediocre second-class health care. We can and must advocate for our emergency department to stay open 24/7. Thank you.
Questions?
Excellent paper.
Thank you.
I'm looking at what we got, and I'm wondering, we've got 7 pages here. But I was trying to follow you, and I'm not too sure we've got your full report there.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it possible to get your full?
You could even have it if you like. It's
I mean, we can return it to you. All I'm saying
no,
is
that's
that
fine.
the Kaslo Health
I know it's
Committee.
handed it already. You would have It's actually not that, I just got a little note off speak about CTAS, which is there, and then
Yeah.
it's sort of.
Yeah, and we really appreciate the effort it took to put this together, and my frustration with IHA in not recognizing clearly the issues that you've outlined here. So it gives us confidence that we're going in the right direction. When we got started on this, we didn't really want to dig into all of this stuff. We were trying to stick with doctor recruitment. But as we got into that issue, these other nurse practitioners,
Yeah.
and I sit on a little committee, unofficial committee, dealing with nurse practitioners, and the legislation and regulatory environment for nurse practitioners will not allow them to work in emergency services at this point in time.
But
That's my understanding from
Yeah.
what I've been
But
told.
there's skill set, there's different skill sets.
Yeah, there's different skill sets, and so, you know, I guess they're training them up in anyway, this paper's really opened up, I think, our opportunity to address, because we don't want to fight with IHA. We want to find solutions with IHA, and you've presented some really creditable solutions here, I think, that will allow us to move forward in the next 12 months to try and find solutions that meet the needs of the community.
And you
So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And you spoke with Lou McDonald when he was here. He works for the BC Nurses Union magazine and is
Yes, I did,
article and update. I don't know what that.
He's going to send me a copy of what he's going to write, so that I
Yeah.
can, you know, make sure that the discussion was, you know, what we talked. It was a very broad ranging discussion,
He
quite
told me
frankly.
to
It
say.
wasn't, you know, into the level of detail. It was, you know, I mean, what's the difference between Stewart, BC, and Caslo, BC? Anyway, that's fine.
Yeah. Well, I think Lou might say it's community spirit. You know, I can't speak to that, but he was, you know, he was very impressed. And
Yeah.
of course, I, you know, sort of think that, you know, we get the article on 40,000 nurses read that. The upside is 40,000 nurses read about Caslo and see some pictures and hopefully go, oh my God,
Yeah.
I want to be there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We need everything. Any other questions? Councillor Mike?
Yeah, how many nurses are employed here currently?
There's one registered nurse on 24 hours a day.
Okay, so how many jobs is that?
I could get that definitively for you.
Roughly, I'm not,
Roughly, there's 3 that work half-time, and there are 3 full-time.
full-time, and that covers off 24/7.
Now, don't quote me, I can get you that.
No, I'm just trying to get a sense of what the current level of service is. And do they currently have access to a doctor most of the time?
When a registered nurse is on and there's no doctor available, then a patient can come to Emerge and we can assess and help where we can and then send them on. If there's no RN on, there's no registered nurse on, then the LPN, because their scope, an LPN scope of practice is stable patients.
Right.
And so they can't provide anything at the door except I can call you an ambulance. Where if you show up, I can say, oh, let me take a look at that. You know what? You can fix that hand up, and you might want to consider sutures, but maybe you know, you can sort of troubleshoot stuff and help out that way. I have to say that with the cutbacks, it's something to do with benchmarking because we're a little unusual, a little bit of an abnormality at the hospital in Caslo in that we're a long-term care facility / emergency department. And benchmarking, seeing that residents get so many hours per resident. So what they did is they pulled our nighttime LPN, and that's been a problem because your LPN can help if there is an emergency that come in. They can call ambulances for you. They can do right signs. They can go out on the floor and give out the insulins to the seniors, you know, or to our residents, and not all seniors, of course, to the residents. Where if I'm pulled into emergency at 7:30 at night, my residents don't get their medications because I can't be there and there. Right? So with their benchmarking and taking away the LPN, this kind of has also impacted our ability to get quality care up there at any time.
And as currently, you haven't received any notification that there's going to be cutbacks to your staff?
I asked, but there was a thing that came out saying that the Standing Committee of Finance was accepting speakers. So I asked if I could speak, and it was accepted, and so I went to that. It was in October in Trail, and spoke, and that was on Monday, and I said that rumor has it that there's going to be changes out there, but we've not officially been told. And then a memo did come out after that. But other than the memo, there's more than we do as the staff out there. That's why I say some of the nurses are quite stressed because some of them are the main breadwinners, and they don't know if they're gonna have a job. So no, nothing official. We just keep hearing rumors. There's been no meeting called for the nursing. We've been told that when Section 58 occurs, which means layoffs and redistributing staff, that will be notified.
Yeah, a good friend of mine who's an ambulance attendant, and she's just saying, I don't know if I can continue if there's not some degree of support at the Kaslo hospital, because picking up a car accident in Meadow Creek and having to sustain life all the way through to Nelson is, she feels, is beyond her skill set or pay grade or however you want to describe it. So if there's not some interventions in Kaslo, then we can conceivably lose ambulance attendants along with the nurses, and then we're really in a bad way.
Yeah, I can't speak, of course, to, on the ambulance attendants.
Right.
But I can say, I've been up here for 3 years, but I was also here for a couple of years in 2000, and I did it was just a 2-year, one of the nurses was off down in the States for a couple of years, and so I just did temporary posting, and that was back in the days of Dr. Olson. And I remember there was a call that came from way up in the bush, some logging camp way out there that was operating back then. Somebody, had a hot appendix, and I thought, gosh, you get them here and get them to Nelson. But now something like that occurs, as you get them here, Nelson doesn't do surgery, you get them to Trail. So they just keep cutting and cutting and cutting, and they used to, it used to be that 95% of Canadians, the goal was that old hour would be met, and now I believe the statistic has dropped down to 90%. Like, they just keep eroding.
Right.
And the majority of people, the population, I think, lives in urban centers, and we're rural, but that doesn't mean that we're second class.
Dr. Holland, any questions? Councilor Hugh?
No questions, but yes, it was a very good
Yeah.
presentation. Lots of information in there, and a different perspective than we've been, having, because we have been, as the mayor has said, talking about doctors, but it does have an effect all the way through the hospital system.
Well, I think, and I have worked in outposts, like on the Northwest Territories and that, and there's the physicians who just come in, certainly not advocating we need physicians here, but something, a little modality, a little community, and physicians came in like for a few days a month, but we had standing protocols, right? So if somebody presented, we would, and then you'd call and talk, and so, there are solutions to, to help prevent physician burnout. So nurses, if there was, some stuff in place to help the physicians, but as it is now, somebody shows up and it's protocol that I call, right? It's just how it is. But we're not allowed to keep patients overnight. We don't have a place for them. So if you come in from Meadow Creek with a child with an earache at 5 in the morning, certainly I could cope with that, right? I could, give some allergies that can, put the child in somewhere to rest with mom until the doctor came in and not have to wake, him or her up in the middle of the night. But we're not supposed to hold patients, right? So, there are ways around. We should have, like when I worked here in 2000, we had a couple of beds that we could, tuck people into, and, but now we don't have that, and so I'd have to either call the doctor or break the rules and say, you can just tuck it here until
Okay, well, thanks a lot for coming in.
Thank you all.
Can you leave this stuff with
Yeah,
me?
I'll leave it all
Amanda?
here. Let's-
And yeah, please consider me a resource. I would come to the meeting next Tuesday, but a close friend of mine's mom died, so I'm going to go to the service from Princeton. But
I'm sure there'll be more meetings, so we'll keep you in mind.
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, it's everybody's favorite call. It's kind of included.
Right.
Nice to have some balance there.
Yeah, we're not gonna let them leave after the meeting until we decide what we're gonna do. So, they might be around for a while. Thanks. Okay, so we'll move on to business. So first is the municipal services and operations, the report from the administrator.
Yes, I do have a recommendation in this report. As Glenn and I and the staff have been working on a number of files, we've certainly been looking at the material PC situation, trying to look at some practical solutions there. But before we get to that point, we have council's got some interesting meetings ahead. And I don't know if you want to consider a special purpose meeting in the last week of November on top of your regular or not to discuss NMBC. It might be a suggestion, an idea to do it. Basically, we've got until November 30th to provide a response. It's been last week was a very interesting week, and we still haven't heard what the outcome of it is. We got the final agreements the preceding Friday to review, and immediately it became apparent that insufficient background work had been done on municipal insurance provision for these agreements. So we've been assured that they're flexible on insurance and that there may be some revised agreements coming. It was a bit of a blow. I've been talking quite closely with New Denver. I've also spoken with UBCM, indicating that a number of legal firms are going to make quite a bit of money from exactly the same legal advice to local governments up and down the province, because only 15% of local governments didn't accept incentives. But the agreements are really thick agreements. There's a lot of verbiage in there. The only responsible thing to do is to send them for a legal opinion. In talking with Carol Gordon in New Denver, we did think about the possibility of going together for a legal opinion, as it might, if we split it might save some money. So I've got I don't know if it'll actually come to pass, but I'm recommending that we be authorised to partner with New Denver in seeking a legal opinion if necessary.
I'll make that recommendation.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
I'll keep you posted on that. It's a very challenging file. I'll be bringing you a negotiations update with respect to the capital operator contract at the next in-camera meeting. We do have a couple of things to discuss on that. In terms of the office financial systems, Carol and I took a trip over to New Denver about 3 weeks ago to have a look at how the Mace systems operated there. It's broadly fairly similar to how it's operated here, but we don't have the payroll system. Well, we don't have the payroll system here, and New Denver's just been incorporating that into their system. In terms of making any changes, I'm not immediately disposed to move away from the existing Mace computer system, but basically identify what training and background work is required to increase efficient use of the system. It would be very expensive to move away from that system. Basically, look at budgeting for acquisition of the Mace payroll system system software for 2014. That would be, given what New Denver told us, it's a worthwhile project, but it takes a few months to implement. Moving towards electronic payment systems for bills, wages, stipends and salaries, this appears to be quite affordable through the credit union. Hopefully we can move to that very quickly, early next year. Work on identifying what staff training we should be doing, and building a bit more capacity to do some reporting in-house perhaps, to save some resources there. And ensuring that we all have a common understanding and approach to the financial system. But that's maybe a little bit, we're a little bit off that at the moment, and I think we need to do some work on that. And basically working with yourselves on the budget process a little bit more until it's in a format that you like. Now I've mentioned the fact that the provision of the Columbia Basin Broadband Corporation there for a consultant to assess what we've got. So again, there's another reason to hold off doing anything about changing software in the immediate future. Just today I was also approached by the CAO of Silverton, who's wanted to try and have a very informal meeting between a number of municipalities to talk about the fact that at least 3 of them are struggling with the CFO position. I've seen a similar move that didn't really come to anything on Northern Vancouver Island with some of the fairly remote municipalities there, where there was a concept of the CFO position being filled by one person who served a number of municipalities. I don't know if that's something council would be interested in looking at or not, but I'd certainly be happy to take in the meeting. I can see these small municipalities having a real challenge with that. So that's where I am with that at the moment. The business license law revision is on hold until the mobile business licensing system analysis or assessment by Nelson Chamber of Commerce from its course. I'm not sure what the timelines are for that, but I believe we'll be able to meet December in Nelson to talk about how that's going.
Excellent. That's good.
Couple things. I agree. I don't think we should move away from maize, because I think we'd end up way further behind, not just financially, but in terms of staff resources, because it would take way more training to get up to speed with a new program than it would to just increase the staff's knowledge of the current program. And the electronic payment thing, if we're really interested, it will take you about 2 months to get the paperwork through the process, because I've done a few of those. So if you want it early January, you got to start now. So, yeah.
I'll be interested to see what this consultant has to say about how collectively through Columbia Basin Broadband services can be delivered on municipalities in a more centralized manner, and what that cost would be depending on the volume of business you're going to do. So I think 2 or 3 years out, we could be into a very cost-effective system, because everybody has to report similar information. It's not like each municipality does a different set of books. They do it in different ways, but what you have to submit, I'm kind of nervous about where the Auditor General is on this, when they start to look and audit other municipalities' methods of running their business. But so I think in the short term, we stick with maize. I think in the long term, we look at the ability to share with other municipalities a common bookkeeping system. I like the idea of one CFO for smaller villages, depending on what our contract cost would be. So it's nice to have options, is I guess where I'm going with it. And if the CAO is exploring these options, then we can be more informed. So when the time is right, we can make a decision concerning changing direction somewhat with other municipalities and share the costs, like we're doing with New Denver on this multi decisions that are being made by multi-management PC.
I'm hoping that by the 12th, by next week, I'll be able to give you a very clear recommendation of whether I think a special meeting is necessary for that. I really suspect it might be, because it really is it's a horrendous file that I don't think we could cover it in a regular meeting. Yeah.
Just one more thing about the mobile business licenses. One thought I had is I don't recall hearing that there was any method of communicating with the business community, because if we go to the mobile business licensing, you could have vendors from Nelson coming in and who've purchased a business license in Nelson and potentially taking business away from local businesses when they're already struggling. So that, I think, should be a consideration for us, and communication with the Chamber of Commerce that this is even something that's potentially on our radar screen.
Yeah, I copied the letter that we sent to the Nelson Chamber to the Council Chamber of Commerce, and as I did say in my letter to them, their case will have to be compelling to make that change. I mean, their focus will be on Nelson and Castlegar. They'll have to have a rural, small community focus on what they're doing too, or it just won't work for us.
Okay, do you have any comments on that? Okay, we'll move to 4B, which is the project list for municipal services. So, if there's anything that needs to be discussed there.
It hasn't been updated since the last regular council meeting, but given that priority setting recommendations is something we maybe want to do tonight, providing it under each area, under municipal services and planning development, there's quite a list, and you picked 4 priorities last year. You've made some significant headway on the 4. Identifying which 4 for 2014 you'd like to achieve would be at the top of your list, would be useful for budget, and would be certainly useful for me.
So you think we should do that? Should that not be a separate meeting then?
You could have a separate meeting for it.
Well, unless anyone is prepared to come up with priorities now, but I think we need to discuss it. And we were going to set a priority session anyway in November, right?
We could maybe, depending on how many meetings you want to have, you could do it as a smaller committee of the whole session before a council meeting, or you could make it a special meeting and do MMBC and
Well, we should try and coincide it with budget. So when is the budget? Is the 3rd?
budget meeting's the 19th.
Right.
We could incorporate it into the budget meeting.
Going to be enough time?
That's more of your question.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't had a chance to talk yet, so we'll look at what the agenda looks like and see whether we can carve out some time, or sufficient time, because I have a feeling all 5 of us may have different priorities, and it will take discussion to arrive at the top.
Does anyone have any questions about the project list?
I can't find it on my little device here. What am I missing?
It's
Should be
under
right.
one municipal services and operations. There's a second
Another
bullet.
one? No, I got all these other things.
It's 1, that's the second bullet under 1.
You're not on the agenda, right?
Is it the PDF one he's on?
Yeah, there's something going on.
So is this the public package?
No, you're in the.
Oh, you're
in the
totally
hearing.
wrong, yeah. Oh, you're not even logged in. You gotta be logged in.
Well, while you're looking for that, can I ask, so the animal control officer contract, how's that going?
I still need to properly sit down with Franz and talk about that. We can certainly get it resolved, I think. He definitely wants recognition of a little bit more for his transportation time, and happier now, and I think and the complaints have disappeared since he got a couple
No
of.
kidding. 6 a.m. pitches.
So I mean, it could resurface again, and but we'll. I think we'll get that sorted out before budget time for sure.
Okay. Okay. We move on. Okay, so we'll go to planning and development, so Water Street.
Okay, so this is I've got a recommendation for the committee here. That the committee recommend one of 3 options to council for November 12th. You may recall that a year ago, the Development Services Committee supported what was known as Concept Plan 1 for Water Street, which was a 2-way system with 45-degree angle parking. After you made that selection, the CAO at the time invited ICBC to come and perform a road safety audit of the 2 concepts developed by the advisory committee. A special purpose meeting should at that time have been scheduled to discuss that report, but for whatever reason it did not. So this is why I'm bringing it to you now before we finalise a concept to go out to the public and to be finally fully costed, although I might add Glenn's a pretty advanced stage of costing it regardless of what you decide. So there were 2 alternatives. Approve a final design that incorporates a 1-way system and 45-degree angle parking, and B, approve a final design that incorporates a 2-way system and 90-degree angle parking. Both these options were suggested. They weren't firm recommendations or mandatory requirements or anything like that, but they were suggested by the SCBC audit as safer alternatives to the concept selected. So basically, I did provide you with the whole plan there. There are some other suggestions he made, and we're going to, unless you want to deal with the smaller suggestions, staff can work that out with Hy on the final concept. I think we've given them guidance on issues like speed bumps or humps and so on to know what you would feedback you provided on those ones. But on that central question, it would be good to have it reaffirmed that that concept is what we wanted.
Well, I think we did actually discuss the report. I don't think we had a separate meeting. I think we discussed it at a committee meeting and decided that the 1-way system wasn't going to work, because that is what the public told us, that 1-way was not going to work. So I guess from my recollection, we didn't actually accept Concept Plan 1. We were going to combine the 2, right? Yeah. Because both of them had some things that we weren't happy with, so we were going to combine the 2. But definitely the 1-way system was not a recommendation.
Well, can I just ask, what was the main concern around a 1-way street out there?
The deliveries.
Delivery trucks all, I've never seen a delivery truck come from the west end, always come from the east end. Have you? I mean, what difference does it make?
Yeah, they do come in both ways. Yeah.
Does
I
it
see
really
the
make a difference? I mean, once they know it's a 1-way street, they know it's a 1-way street. I mean, if these guys are truck drivers, they're professionals now. Was that the only complaint about a 1-way street?
Well, that's what you were chairman of the committee for quite a while, but we did actually research, like we did have a lot of public input.
Yeah. Because what's going to happen on a 2-way street, I can tell you right now, you're going to, both lanes of traffic will be blocked when one truck comes back there and starts unloading. Because if he comes in from the west end, he's going to be parking on the wrong side of the road, he's going to unload his truck and walk across. The same as what happens on Front Street. When the truck's unloaded out there, basically the blocks the whole street. Because people are driving around, and it's kind of a nightmare. If it's 1-way, I think there's enough room there that there's a place for somebody to drive by while the truck's sitting there. And he's over against the curb, and there'll be room to drive by in one direction. But I'm not suggesting I'm reinitiate the whole process, but I mean, I do
take issue with their comment that 45-degree parking will result in a larger potential number of collisions. I mean, I think 90-degree parking is really the issue. If you park 90 degrees, you gotta back straight out and cover both lanes of traffic before you can start turning. So if you're 45, then you only need the one lane.
And they did say in there that by doing reverse 45-degree angle parking, you eliminate a lot of that issue.
I personally am not in favor of making it one-way street.
I think we've done we spent 3 years looking at this project, and we looked at both one-way and two-way. And we did get the report, but we've had it for over a year, so I honestly think if we revisit this again, we already have upset people on Front Street. I think we need to just move forward with this. Sounds like it would be.
I think right now we're rehashing it right now. Is this the time we want to do it? Where do we want to have a separate meeting, like, or at least one that we can have more of a discussion on this without a large agenda still looming in front of us, and actually look at the plans again, so we know what we're talking about. Because it's been like over a year since we've sat with them in front of us and discussed it.
I think the CAO has started down this road. I'd be interested to see what further work. Maybe we go with one-way now, or we're with two-way now, but in the future, we can go to one-way. I mean, I've always felt that one-way was the way to go, quite frankly, because I just don't see the traffic issue that was raised as the determining point. And the thing about one-way was, you're only backing out one way to go ahead. So there is a safety issue there in some regards, and the one-way led to more parking, which was the issue. But anyway, I think it's worth Councillor Hewitt suggesting, but we need to be able to look at a piece of paper. And my goal is to free up as much distance for an amenity area as we can. That's my goal. The view, walking paths in there, Glenn and the CAO are working on a very interesting way in which that can be accommodated. And so, to me, that should be part of the thinking is, what does the amenity area look like under the three options? So I'd like to see a special meeting at some point in time, because we're not going to pave it imminently. And just it does worry me a little bit if ICBC, and it's on the record that they've done this, and there is a situation there where there is an accident or something. I don't know whether ICBC said, well, look, we're not covering you because...
No, it's nothing like that. It's basically suggestions. That's all it is.
Okay.
The report there is basically, if you want to open it up again, you can. In terms of us reaching out to the public, informing them what's coming down the pipe for Water Street in 2014, if there's uncertainty about what a final plan will look like, means I'm leery to engage HIO again to do that work, because you should only need to do it one more time.
That was a good.
And my hope was to get him doing that in the next few weeks, but if I can't get a clear answer, I can't really do that. If we have to reschedule to later in the month or to December or January, basically any reaching out to the public has to wait until the new year.
I agree with Councilor Good. I would think that if we had these three pictures in front of us, so we can kind of see what we're talking about, it's pretty hard in this was to handle what the heck's going on. I bet we could hash it out one way or the other. Okay. Get the beer done on that part of it.
Okay, I'll engage into a third drawing based on what's existing.
I think it's around. I think I'll probably got it in the file somewhere too.
Yeah.
Well, we've got two plans.
Glenn and I looked carefully at concept plans 1 and 2 and the minutes from 2012 in development services, and it was pretty clear that concept plan 1 overwhelmingly was really the one you chose. Yeah. So that's not the point. Concept one, the concept plan one is essentially what you decided to do.
We had
Yeah, but Glenn, Harry and I have had some discussions, and we could bring a slightly modified 3 over to you, if that's what you'd like to do.
I think we should do the meeting sooner rather than later.
Okay.
So you're going to get hired to do a third drawing.
Yeah. Unless you just want to look at the 2 first. I think the third one is necessary. There are a couple of things that we need to deal with. There's a corner as you turn in that does the drawing needs to reflect what's actually going to happen there. Yeah. Yeah.
So then, would that be the fun? So he'll do a third drawing, and will we get him to do another one on top of that, or just the third drawing would be that?
I would hope that the third drawing would hopefully be the final one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so maybe at the next council meeting, we'll get a better idea then of when we could set that meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next is the sidewalk suggestions for Water Street.
Yes, this is related to what Glenn and I are working on as a side to the actual paving and curb and gutter work. And it's just an inquiry that we're making right now. I received in my email inbox a few weeks ago basically a flyer from a Lower Mainland company that does reconstituted rubber tyre surfaces. There's a significant grant available from the BC Tyre Stewardship Council, and if we incorporated 1 to 200 metres of that surface as opposed to sidewalk or asphalt, along with perhaps some street lighting on the lakeside of Water Street, we might be able to pair that with a little bit of gas tax money and have an active transportation project that would cost the taxpayer additional money, and it would perhaps speed up the work on that side on top of the paving and curb and gutter work that might make certain stakeholders a bit happier next year. But Glenn and I are still in the early stages of exploring that, but if it looks like it's going to go somewhere, we'll certainly bring it to you.
I'll ask them what it's like when it's really hot out.
Oh, and underfoot?
Yeah. I know that's sometimes been issues when they put it in schools,
Oh.
because it's really hot. When it gets really hot, it's kind of melts a little bit.
Any worse than asphalt?
Well, they don't typically use asphalt for fields.
Oh,
I know
you're
that-
talking okay, this is for walking paths, right?
Yes.
So it's the same material, though,
Right.
right? So I know that a few years ago, one of the school teams went down to a soccer tournament and they played on that type of material. It was really hard to play on because it was hot and it kind of,
That's magic.
yeah. Anyway, yeah. Okay, so the next one is planning bylaw and services report.
This is just an update for you all. A number of planning bylaws are under review, and we're looking at some potential amendment issues moving forward next year. The OCP review, zoning bylaw amendments, airport lands and/or perhaps foreshore zoning, subdivision servicing bylaw, the telecommunications fibre provision, the subdivision application fees, which I may be bringing forward as a community for the whole finance discussion, just to talk with council a little bit about it. Depending on your interest, with respect to something like embarking on the zoning of waters within the municipal boundaries as a tool to improve regulation and control in the foreshore and other areas, I may look a little bit at the costs related to bringing in a planning consultant to assist on something like that. Kaslo's are comparatively high within the region. We are I've certainly noticed that we're persistently approached with informal inquiries about potential subdivisions without anything following through. Essentially, people looking for the answer without having to part with their $1,000. Without knowing more about what the goal was in terms of setting that subdivision fee a number of years ago, I'm reluctant to sort of recommend change it right away or anything like that. But I'd certainly like to discuss what the intention was there.
My recollection is that because our fees were so low, that they were frivolous applications,
I see.
and the amount of time staff had to spend far exceeded the amount that was taken in. But you're just getting them the same thing, but in a informal manner.
Yeah.
So they will not, they're not paying fees. They really want to do it, but they want to find the answers to their questions without having to go through the process.
They want the answer without going through the process. Essentially, they're wanting to be told, yes,
To be pre-approved
yes,
before
yes, you
approving.
can, yes, you will be subdivided before they apply to be subdivided. So I don't know if a solution was necessary there or not, but I certainly wanted to raise it with council and see if there's any appetite to look at that.
They can have a copy of the bylaw too, right? So they can read what is required of a subdivision without paying a fee, right?
I have noticed that front office staff field an awful lot of inquiries that don't go anywhere. And you have the same critical mass of individuals.
Okay, so moving on to the long-term mortgage article.
That was forwarded by council for discussion here. It's related to what I've been talking about a little bit.
So that's just for interest sake. Okay, so the next one is,
Could I ask that, I guess it's really appropriate to refer it to an OCP review, but I have to kind of lose track of it. I'm not thinking of where to.
it's on the other list.
It's on.
Yeah, you had the.
Is it on the project list? Okay.
Yeah. So this is the planning and development project list.
And this would be an interesting case in point for a strategic session or joint strategic session with budget, given what we just discussed. If council wanted to put what's on that list in my report there, if you wanted to put a foreshore and water zoning project into effect for 2014 or 2015, it should be added to the project list and we find a way to start ranking some of these things.
I'll give that a try then. I'll move that we add this to the project list, water zone consideration.
Second. Recommendation for Councillor Lang. All those in favor?
Can I just ask a question? Have we heard back from Joan when she will be back? It says November. Have we received any indication of when?
Hopefully we should get something in the near future. However, Joan did get in touch with me about 10 days ago. She's apparently had a death in the family and she's been back in Ontario. So she will be back in touch in due course. But I'm hoping that's all going to be done by the end of the year.
Okay, so the next one is, any other questions about that project list? So the bylaw report. That's will take it in.
Yeah, that was just a reminder. I am bringing it forward. We do have to make some amendments and updates to the schedules to make purchasing some new ticket books useful. Just the schedules are a little out of date in terms of the animal control bylaws in particular, and I'll be bringing that in the next month or so forward.
Yeah.
And since this was discussed in municipal services, if anyone's got any suggestions or anything like that about what we're doing with the bylaws, do let me know.
Okay, so moving on to the City Hall and building. So first of all, I just want to call everyone's attention to this beautiful picture over here that we got from
Mr. Fraser, I think. Yeah, I think he is connected. I didn't see it come in today, but I gather that Mr. Fraser has worked with the Heritage Theatre Group in the past or something like that.
Well, did we commission him to do that? Because I remember we did talk at one time about getting him to do some stuff. Yeah,
That's nice.
it is great, yeah.
We don't know where we're going to put it, but it should be somewhere nice and prominent.
Yeah, I was thinking we should try and put it in a store or something so people can see it, because we don't really get that many people that come into this building. Another suggestion of the library, but again, I think it needs to be where a lot of public can see it. So then, got a couple of some comments about the Kemmel Center and the City Hall.
This is some of it's just largely a personal take, given that I've had a few months now to look at the two buildings a little bit. And again, it plays into your prioritisation projects next year. City Hall's got major challenges, as you know. That's principally challenges in funding. The Kemmel building, on the other hand, presents opportunities for smaller improvements that could certainly do a lot for downtown Castle over time. And we only have a limited capacity to do these things. The broadband situation, we should be connected sometime in December. That's the latest on that. Again, have to determine their way forward still, but I think it's looking a little more positive now. Council chambers, I'm really keen to see some improvements in this room. Tidying that up made quite a difference. Credit to staff for that. And also, related to the issue that with the broadband, I'm having to engage the province a little bit on the question of some of their assets in the basement, because we're potentially going to lose that storage room to the broadband hub connection in terms of the space and environmental conditions that apparently are required. I'm currently working with the CBBC to see if we can come to a compromise, because losing that storage space is difficult's not the word. We just don't have alternatives. So hopefully we can come to a compromise on that. But to cut a long story short, I'm asking the province to look at their assets for the Kemmel building, determine if they've got a plan for some of the furniture and pieces that they have no interest in, that the municipality doesn't have any interest in.
That's with the province?
Yes. They've still got some property in the basement, not a lot. But
And that was transferred to us up a cell in the building?
apparently not. Apparently there's a couple of pieces, there's some pieces there, but we'll have, there's seats in particular. There's a lot of old nice seats, office style seats that were made when they were filling that room, but apparently they're still the provinces. I'm not sure how that works in terms of which assets are ours and which are theirs, but Mary Lynn seems to know which is which.
Huh.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't take possession of their building. I mean, all this stuff was discussed.
Well, I think at that time that office space downstairs was just the government agent though. So I think some of it's from there.
Yes, I think the government office still retains some of the fixtures and fittings.
Yeah.
We've got the majority of it, but now storage is it was an unintended consequence of the fibre hub, for sure, but we've now got to try and deal with it. We have identified some maintenance work in a staff meeting in terms of being required around the front steps and rails in the Campbell building, and improving the heating and cooling capacities of certain areas of the building is also being explored by Glenn. In terms of City Hall, the only way forward I can see with City Hall is a phased series of projects if we're fortunate enough to have grant programs come forward in particular. The municipal operation main floor, the courtroom area as a major heritage project, and then the exterior. The Widows' Walk is actually underway on Dublin building. Chris Temple's currently acquiring some materials for that project, and that should be done by the early spring. In terms of the comment I make there, basically some gas tax revenue as well as the City Hall Reserve will probably be required to make a number of these projects feasible over the coming years, with or without additional granting. Certainly volunteer support could reduce these costs in a number of areas where there's expertise and people willing to give some time to the fabric of City Hall in particular, as could other partnerships with organisations wanting to use the Campbell building in the long term. I understand the Kaslo Institute people are quite interested in the Campbell building, and I'm not sure in what way yet. So it's a difficult picture, but in terms of a priority session, we need to, I think Council needs to pick a couple of projects for next year for one or both buildings.
The courtroom, any word from Karen McConnell? She was one leading the charge to get some grants for the courtroom.
Having to ask Carol about that, I don't believe anything did come of it. I don't think any funding was pulled in for it on that occasion.
I just know a little bit.
Yeah.
But you might be fixing to say it.
No, it's okay.
There's been a lot of activity and emails flying around. She's looking for a nonprofit sports sponsoring organization. And a couple have been approached. No real good fit been seen yet.
Right.
But she is put her personal resources on the line to be the one to do the bulwark and got the project. And she agreed that the grant writing, project administration, building a fit and use for a sponsoring organization, how it fits, budgeting, reporting, all that, and she's going to be the one to do the work, but she's got to have a sponsor.
Yeah.
And the grant that she's looking at,
That's the
critical spaces.
Yeah.
It's a provincial grant. I think it's oversubscribed.
Yeah.
So I'll look into
Yeah.
it.
We were pushing on that to find a society that wants to fund that, but
I've been trying to twist the arm of North Cuban Lake Arts and Heritage. To me, it's council. It's kind of their baby, but they're so small and they don't have any staff or anything that they're pretty nervous about it. So I don't know what else to take on. I mean, they're talking to my employer about that. It's kind of a long shot too. So I don't know.
no, it's an awkward one because we can't apply for that one, but we could offer up some match funding for it from gas tax or something like that, because it's a building fabric, essentially creating an insulated, fixed up space for community use, which is what that courtroom would at the end of the day be.
So I think I sent you an email wondering if by chance somebody like Legacy, the Legacy people, would be interested in being a partner on that. They're a nonprofit organization. It's in their mandate. They've got an interest in the building.
Oh, you mean the actual Heritage Legacy?
Heritage Legacy Fund, or what do you call those guys?
The fund based in the Lower Mainland, yeah.
They've put money. They put
Yeah.
$25,000.
Yeah, we
They
did the
put money
windows.
into the building. It's the Legacy Fund, right?
Yeah. Heritage Fund.
Heritage.
You know, guys, I really wonder, in terms of setting priorities, is painting the exterior of the building.
Yeah,
It's an eyesore.
Yeah.
Right coming into town. All this other stuff is great. But until we get that building looking like it's not run down, that's gonna create quite an eyesore. So I'd really like to see, as a priority, painting the building. Now, that's where some volunteer effort might come in. We've got a ladder truck. I don't know what it takes. We've been trying to raise money with paint, but, you know, to me, that's the absolute number one priority for the municipality. That's the one I hear the most about. It's an eyesore.
Yeah.
So I'd like to leave council with the thought that if the CAO can identify a way we can get the building painted, that would be the priority that I would set for the next little while.
We've
But
got-
I don't know what do other councillors think about, you know, in terms of priorities for the building. The library kind of came along and dominated our life for 2 years. And that was a priority.
We talked about that at our city hall meeting.
Yeah.
You and
I know. We have over $80,000 in the reserve. I mean, we assessed the painting at $50,000. I think we should take it out of the reserve.
So,
and,
but we're having
But, yeah.
setting
yeah.
discussions
Anyway.
right now.
Okay,
If we
so
can get that on the agenda.
we'll put that into the department. Okay, so the project list.
And that's just there for your information. It's the smallest list, but I still have to update it with some content for the Campbell building. But anyway, between the two buildings, we've got some significant projects to try and pursue. A lot of projects, and because we can't just do it all in one big shot, and we have to pick some.
Okay, so there's nothing under sustainable economic development. So then the council priority discussion.
I simply provided you with the last record of that, and I gather you want to have an additional meeting, so.
So should are we going to wait to set that meeting? Is there any reason to wait?
None. The question would be, would the chair of the finance committee want to parse that with the finance meeting?
Well, are you available Thursday afternoon?
Yes.
At 3 o'clock. So we email back and forth, so we can discuss it on Thursday,
Okay.
whether we think there'll be sufficient time to cover both things
Yeah.
in the same meeting, and if so, then we can do that.
Can I personally, my opinion is that, you know, we've really cut down our amount of meetings, and, you know, I came and had a discussion with Neil the other day. I feel really disconnected with what's going on in council, and I feel like because we're switching to committee of the whole, and maybe it's only because we're in this trial period, our kind of role as councillor has shifted, and so we come to the meetings, we have all these reports from the CAO, but you know, as councillor, or for myself anyway, I don't know how everyone else feels, I feel kind of out of touch, and so we're talking about combining meetings, which means, again, we're conscious of time, and if we're going to have a special meeting for something, I think it needs to be on a single night where we can really sit down and discuss things, because I don't see that happening right now. That's my personal opinion. So I would prefer to have, if we're going to do a single-purpose meeting for priorities, then that's what it is. It's not combined with another meeting where we're, you know, conscious of how much time it's taking us and we don't fully discuss things. So 7 is upcoming events, notices, and meetings of interest. So anything coming up that's of interest this month? There's the, you know, usual ceremony at the Cenotaph on Monday.
Well, this is in December, but Light Up will be happening December 7th. And the craft fair will be happening the same day, apparently, as it usually does.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a community-wide thing. That's all I can think of at this moment.
The healthcare group have arrived at a point where there will be meeting with various IHA individuals every second week, moving ahead.
Mm-hmm.
was a blatant misrepresentation of an existing situation. And what amazed me was the deputy minister had been given the information that this council had made a recommendation of non-confidence in IHA, and yet they, in their response to these 350 letters, they said no. The politicians agree with us, and I'm now saying, well, I have to say no. We voted. I mean, what does a non-confidence motion mean to the Ministry of Health? Does that mean the politicians agree with? And that was right after Hal Penny's meeting. So there's an awful lot of chaos is the word I'll use up there, but it's kind of a time thing. And so, I mean, between Andy, Maggie Winters, and Tom Humphreys, and Tom Humphreys is doing a lot of work on this on our behalf in terms of the issues of the contract and recruiting doctors. That leads to other things, so it's a very complicated situation. It's not something that's clear cut. It's evolving, it's changing almost on a monthly basis. But
That's all right.
Yeah, did they request to appear as a delegation, or were they requested to come?
no, they were,
They
well,
were-
they requested.
The IHA wanted to come. They wanted to come to Kaslo and meet
With council.
with council and the health group as well.
But it started with council.
But it was UBCM feedback. They were seeking it in camera and the public.
Yeah, and so on that issue, it was, well, the last thing I think we need is council to have an in-camera meeting with IHA in which we cannot explain to the public what the content of that meeting is. And so they've accepted a regular delegation, right? So that's what appears. And then Michelle Mungle is now involved. Is she going to come up with new or
They haven't yet. Her office hasn't confirmed, but
Okay.
Maggie Winters did come to see me today, and I don't know if she's
Yeah.
followed up with you. She wants the health group to have some time in camera prior to that council meeting with council before the public session with IHA. So
Anyway, it's challenge.
So,
Yeah, so are they coming to make a presentation, or are they just come? They are there going to make a
yes, they are
presentation.
going to make a presentation. We don't know what.
That's all.
Well, and it's supposed to be based on Hal Penny's comments to council. That's the subject matter. These are the comments that he made to council at UBCM. And he, as far as I'm concerned, that's all he should be addressing. And I don't know whether did Hal Penny hand a piece of paper up at the end of the
No.
discussion? Or, so to me, it's another one of these very undefined, unfortunate circumstances. But we don't want to close the door. We do want to listen to what they have to say.
in a 10-minute delegation.
Well, I don't know what else to do.
I think that we as council need to bend the rules in that
No,
situation.
I understand.
I think we have to make.
There's rules about, we can do
Yeah.
that. I think it's 2/3 vote or something.
Right.
Yeah, you can extend.
Because I don't think we want to short circuit that discussion.
No, I don't think it should be at a council meeting. I think it should be a single purpose meeting again.
And then you want to just share with us the fire hall situation?
No,
In terms of the building permit?
Well, no, that's
It's started.
hopefully we'll receive it in the next day or so.
Okay.
But Chief Swan's coming as a delegation along with the project manager to essentially meet with council as a body and let them know what they're doing. And,
Okay.
yeah.
Have hired local people, might go up there almost every day, we are getting ready to pour cement, which I agree, pouring cement, freezing temperatures